Right, so I'm just sitting here with Edgar and fucking Shimoda. Your sunburn. How's your stomach?
Yeah, it's like a lobster.
It's looking pretty bad?
Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't look too bad.
Yeah.
It doesn't look as bad as it, but you know that's how burns are. They sometimes don't look as bad. And then you fucking can't sleep, right? Well, we're just talking about racism, like back home. And then in general, right? Like one thing I learned, I started traveling, is that the people that helped me were not the people I expected to help me. You know? Like I didn't grow up in a racist environment. My dad is not racist at all, actually. So I was kind of raised in a very, very, very anti-racist home, actually. Yeah, my dad was not into it. If I ever said anybody was different or whatever, he's like, they're not different, just try harder. He was just always, and so I kind of like, that had big influence on me. So I wasn't thinking that way. And I never thought in racial terms. Like I had girlfriends. I didn't even know they were Asian until I came to Japan and got a bowl of sashimi. And I was like, fucking Susan Suji was fucking Japanese. Like I had no idea. I never thought about her as anything. I literally could not see. I just thought she's hot, I want to bone her all the time, right? That's all I thought about her. I literally didn't even notice. I swear to God, it sounds funny now in today's day and age, but I never even noticed she was Asian. Like I never talked about her. I didn't ask what country she's from. I just knew her dad didn't like me. He didn't want me to date her, right? And then she loved to suck cock, right? And her friends, and she was cool. She was a cool chick. That's like all I knew. Yeah. I was like, a girl who really loves to suck cock is pretty cool. Right? They'll tell you, right? I love sucking cock. And you're like, that is a great plus, I'm not against that, And so that was mainly why I just thought of her as a good girlfriend, right? Girlfriend material, right? She wasn't holding out on me, that kind of thing, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Glad to hear you're not against that, as opposed to like the rest of us.
Yeah, most people here would be totally, that would be antithesis of what the guy would want, right? Yeah, most guys, yeah. But so yeah, what were we talking? What was the kind of? Let's.
So just talking about how
homies back home fuck you over.
Yeah,
that was part of it.
Yeah, homies back home fuck you over, and this whole Black Lives Matter stuff. How they just
tell them a little bit of your background, because they know my background.
Okay, so I grew up in a chaotic household, and basically also in a immigrant community. So a lot of ideas get put into your head about who's the bad guy, who's the good guy. Did you grow up speaking
English or another language?
I grew up speaking Spanish, but by kindergarten I was in all English class.
So at home, Spanish.
Yeah, so home at Spanish.
English school.
Okay. And then also I had a pretty unique childhood in that by third grade, I was in the GATE program, and back then they would bus you to other schools. So I would go to my regular school, check in.
So he's talking about he was picked as a genius kid, basically in third grade, and they put him in advanced classes, which, because I already know a little bit of your background, you're skipping over it. So he was put in these genius classes, and then that pulled you out of your community, basically, right? Like no longer were you with everybody you grew up with.
Exactly.
You're like in these other classes, which is very interesting to me because I wasn't, right? I wasn't like, yeah. That's very cool. That's interesting.
So like my day-to-day I was kind of on my own program. It was only me and like two other kids. So whatever ideas and beliefs were being injected in my head about what white people are, what black people are, I'm just in these other classes with kids from all sorts of races, Asian, white, black, Mexican, and we're just there, not seeing color. We're just there working on projects. They're busing us to universities to compete and in certain competitions with other kids from other schools, right? So when I would go home and I would hear, especially like the neighbor kids, what they would say, they would talk smack about the U.S. government. They would talk smack about what how white people are bad and how they're making it hard for people. It never clicked to me, right? So I was pretty much insulated from all those the beliefs at the ground level, and that kind of made me a target because I would be accused of not being a Mexican by other Mexicans. So I was experiencing this other type of racism because I wasn't fitting the mold, of what the other immigrants in that community was, right? So it was this weird Twilight Zone episode where I'm just a nice kid. I don't know what's going on. All I know is I'm in these classes, and I'm on this different path, right? And then bringing that to now to the present times, looking back, like some of the closest people that have screwed me over, it didn't matter if we were the same skin color. it didn't matter. You know, and I guess the top,
like homeboys screwed you over.
yeah, it's homeboy screwed me
Guys
over.
near you, like, yeah, that's so common too. It's so common. Like, it's crazy. Like, you know, like you think your enemy's out there so far away, right? And it's often like the dude next door, or your brother or something.
Oh,
right?
exactly.
Like, right fucking there, your dad,
your family, your parents, and this is why I feel if I was to give some advice to the youngsters coming up today and trying to make sense of the world,
Yeah.
is that you can't be listening to these messages, especially on TV, especially the message that Black Lives Matters, which their main message is all white people are evil. Right, that's their main. That's what I see is their main message, and
That's the message.
right, that is the message, right?
Yeah, you can see it. It's very clear. Yeah.
And they tell you that you have no chance in hell to move up, that the system is the way it is, and that you're slotted where you are, and there's no moving up, and that's a very dangerous defeatist type of attitude, you know. And we have to be careful because we bring these assumptions that you've never really field tested.
You know, it's interesting because when I was doing labor, right, I was laboring with there was probably like 2/3 Mexican dudes, and then we had San Salvador, El Salvador, a couple other countries, right. And so I worked with these two guys a lot, right, and we were close, you know, we got friendly, right. I invited them over for a barbecue, and it was at my house and stuff, and like it was kind of funny, you know, just on the side note. I don't want to go into any detail on this one because I don't want the person to know that I noticed this. But basically, I took these two dudes somewhere, and there was somebody who's like really anti-race, like a real SJW, like hardcore. And he wouldn't let them inside his house because it was during coronavirus. And I know for a fact he let some other dude from another race in the day before because he had a Porsche Carrera convertible, right? And he didn't let those guys in. And I was outside with those guys. And it was sad because I invited them over for barbecue. And it turned out to be kind of cold. Like even in Santa Cruz in winter, it's cold. Right? So we had our barbecue all set up. And I bought a ton of food, right? And they went to town because they were so stoked. They were just like, fucking, this is cool. The bros, you know, after work. Because usually laborers don't really get along that much. They don't talk that. But I'm different, right? I'm just like, I'm fucking having competitions with them, throwing rocks over walls. And they're like, dude, you don't have to work this hard. I'm like, fuck you, I'm kicking your ass. And then they would be like, all right, you fucker. You know, we'd be like doing this thing, right? And they invited me to Mexico. We were just getting along so good. So when I invited them over, I thought the whole house was going to be like me that I was with. And nobody came out. And there was no lights outside. So we had the barbecue. And they went and bought a ton of expensive meat. And we were just sitting there in the cold. And we had all this food. And we couldn't even see it because it was so dark, you know, with a flashlight. And I was thinking, fuck, man, people can be racist. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's not real, you know. It's just funny. You don't know who it's going to be, right? That was the strange part. The person that's the most against it was actually the dude, and not even him. It was other people, actually, that were the same way, right? You cannot have a discussion with these guys without talking about Black Lives Matter. Let's put it that way. Like, that is the number one topic at the time. And yet they wouldn't let those dudes come in the house. So we're sitting outside in the cold. And then they were like, sorry, man. Like, the guy had a young kid. At the end, he's like, I got to go home. And like half the meat was uncooked. And we're just sitting there in the dark. And it was just sad, you know. I went inside and I thought, this is so fucking ridiculous. This is, you know, totally fucked. But they were cool guys, right? So the one guy had been in San Quentin a lot. And he'd grown up near Santa Cruz, right? He wasn't from Mexico. He was born in Watsonville, right? So anyway, Mondo. So we were talking about stuff. And I recorded him an episode, which we never put online because he was in some Mexican gang. He didn't want me to put it online. But it was about how one of my theories is that women create bad boys, like gang members. And he was like, fuck, I fucked so many white girls. He's like, they loved it because I was a gang member, right? And I'm like, exactly, man. I said, were you naturally a gang member? Like, were you like naturally that way? He's like, I'm like, or were the girls reward you for doing that? And he looked at me, he's like, fuck. He's thinking back, he's like, yeah. He's like, I actually didn't like to do that stuff when I was 12 and 13. He said, but the girls would reward you, and that's all you care about. And the girls actually make gang members. If they didn't fuck gang members, guys wouldn't do it. The gang members get money, and they're bad boys to the core, right? And then they fucking fuck the hottest girls, right? This guy fucked a TV anchor in Santa Cruz, like all that kind of shit, right? The girls line up for fucking guys who were in San Quentin, right? Anyway, he had been in San Quentin a couple times. And so we were talking about that in the episode. And so then I left the job, and we were going to do an episode about how tough it is to be Mexican in America, because he was telling me about his neighborhood and fucking this is happening and that's happening, and shit's going down all the time in his where he was living, right? And then I met him one time, and then he got killed. He got shot in his neighborhood. He's dead. Yeah. And he's only like 27, maybe 26. And I was like, fuck, it's really true, right? It's no joke. Like, it's fucking serious out there, I mean, I don't want to be overly serious, but this was my friend. I was going to do an episode about this. It's tough to be Mexican in America, And what I realized with him was, we talked about Thailand. And I said, dude, just get on a fucking plane, save your money. He had some stupid cunt he was dating. I'm like, just fuck this girl. She wasn't even his kid. I'm just like, just get rid of her. Come to Thailand. Just come. I'll meet you at the airport. Take care of you. You'll fucking open your eyes. It's kind of like the same topic, because I knew that in Thailand, he'll just be treated like another foreigner. They don't have any box for dude who grew up in the ghetto. They just have one box, foreigner and Thai. 2 boxes, right? Those are the boxes, right? And he's a foreigner. And that can be good, depending, like if you're Richard Branson, it's not that great. But if you're like a normal dude, like I was when I went overseas, it was a big step up for me when I got to Asia. Because all of a sudden I was treated like every other dude. But I grew up in a trailer park, so it wasn't the same for me either. Any reaction? Yeah.
Well, I guess going back, I guess to what started this topic, what we were talking about, like, with the racism. Yeah, that's
it's like classism, racism.
Yeah, I see it as a class thing.
Yeah.
And in the United States, historically, the ones that have a lot of money are white people. And I feel that the elites at the top, they use racism to kind of stir the pot at the bottom, because the effects of racism, the elites, for lack of a better word, they're insulated. They're living in their gated communities. They're living in these neighborhoods with other rich people.
Yeah.
That they could point to someone like Donald Trump and say, look, he's racist. Because for someone that believes the BS of racism, Donald Trump does look like a typical racist. He's white with blonde hair, in a business suit, and he has a lot of money. So he makes the easy target to point to say that he's a racist.
Even though he had no history when he was...
no history. But he looks...
He was loved by rappers, right? You ever heard the Donald Trump montage of rap songs about him?
No, but
dude, he was loved in New York. Dude, we got to play it after.
Well, when I was a kid, I remember seeing him on...
YouTube.
He was all over
It's
TV.
hilarious. Donald Trump. I want to be rich like Donald Trump.
Yeah, I've heard
There's
stuff
just
like
all
that.
the songs,
As a kid, he was on a lot of TV shows.
Yeah.
He was on interviews, loved by the crowds. I remember that in the 80s, 90s. He was all over. He was loved.
I want to say one thing, though, and this is what I'm sure you can relate, because you lived in Japan. You've been in Japan a lot, right? The thing is, this idea that, like, okay, people, like white people in America, right? They were rich, right? I think it's incredibly stupid. Like in Japan, like Japanese people are rich, right? Like there's not any rich like Africans here, right? And there's no rich white people. Like Japanese people are rich in Japan, and they control all the power, the media, the government, the TV, everything, right? The newspapers, they control immigration policy and everything. In Africa, there's no white guys leading African countries, right? It's fucking black dudes, and they're rich, and they discriminate against other people. India, it's totally normal in a country to have different amounts of money and for those people to control the country. And it is so crazy that because somebody's one color, like to ignore the other one. Like if you go to Africa and you start telling them to make a white guy president, a Mexican dude, say, you guys are racist. There's no white guys president, right? There's white guys in Africa, for sure. There's tons, right? They never get anywhere. They never get to the top, ever. They never fucking... There was one guy who came close, and somebody cut the gas lines to his airplane when he was going out. He was out looking at something, and then he crashed and lost both his legs. There's an interview on YouTube. Yeah, he was in where was it? Mozambique. I can't remember, but he was getting close to running pretty high up office, and then they sabotaged him, and he almost died. But he wasn't that high up, and he was in like a single engine plane, so he just crashed and lost his legs. But like this idea that you settle a country and then you're going to be rich and you're going to control power. That's totally normal in every single country. There's no exceptions. Yeah. There's no African country that invited a bunch of white guys to run it, or Japanese guys. There's no Japanese guys running countries in Africa. There's no black guys running Asian countries. It's just so dumb. Like, it's if you're going to judge one race, you got to judge all the races, right? Because you got to say, okay, if height is important, then we're going to measure the height of people, right? Not the age, not the race, right? Yeah. If age is important, we'll measure the age, right? If speed is important, to measure the speed. You know what I mean? If intelligent, we're going to measure. You know what I mean? Like, it's so dumb. Like, it's so unfair what's happening in America, because those dudes settled the country. A lot of those families, like, of course they got fucking rich. I think it's so ridiculous. Like, every time I get fucked over in Asia, and I do, I just think, I don't get to make me angry, because I'm like, this is their country. Like, of course they're going to be like that. They're going to be exclusionary, right? They're going to run the place. They're going to have all the power. It's totally fucking normal. And if you tell them otherwise, just see how far it gets you. Like, something's fucked up in America. Like, they're creating like hatred that is I think it's gonna destroy young men. I think young men in America, I think white people should leave America, basically, is the best choice. Is just get out of there. You're being painted as a terrible person. There's no reason to be there. I can't think of any reasons. I mean, unless you got a family or some reason to be there. Go somewhere where, like, you can just be a normal person. Because, like, in Asia, you're just a normal person. Like we're the same. Like, we go up, we meet Japanese people. Like, we're the same. We're foreigners. Just who speaks Japanese better, who's more useful in a certain situation. Like, and that's a cool thing about it. Expats all stick together. I think if you're a young white, especially a white guy, you should and you're in a Western country, get out of there, man. You're not welcome. And you're being painted as a terrible person. And it's terrible for your self-esteem. And it has nothing to do with you. Hatred's hatred. It doesn't matter who it's against. I always take the road of, like, if you can't change something, don't let it bother you. Just leave. If a girl's a bitch, don't sit around complaining about it. If the food sucks, go somewhere where the food's good. If your job sucks, quit the job. And these fucking pussies who keep the job and then complain about it, I can't help them, right? I think you should leave America. I think that's the smartest thing to do. Because they've created a hatred where everybody hates you. And you're seen as a terrible person. And unless you are a terrible person. But if you're not, I would say leave. Yeah, that's what it is. If you're a terrible person, stay.
Yeah, definitely it's a class thing. Because in Japan, right, they can't point to racism as to why some Japanese are at the top and some are at the bottom.
Well, they can, because there's like different, there's Okinawans, there's people who worked with leather and meat.
Oh, that's right. I mean, yeah.
They have
but it's still a class thing. But what I'm saying, it's a class thing.
No, but there's Koreans, that's different. They consider that like a different race.
But I think immigrants will always be second class in any country. If you're not from that country, it's totally normal to understand why you will always be considered second class or lower class.
I don't think it's always. I think it's more like, I think countries have like a bit of what is it called? Hazing. And the hazing lasts a few generations. So like you see different races that come into America.
Like
and
the Irish, when they first came
in. Yeah, exactly. It took time, right? And then the Chinese, they really got fucked over. But now there's like, tons of Chinese in Harvard and all these, running government stuff. But it takes time the hazing is pretty bad. And it's going to be longer than your lifetime. It's your son's lifetime. It's like in a few generations. And the hazing gets less. And then the new guys come in, and then they get hazed.
That's true.
And I know,
Irish, Catholic, it would be Irish, then Italians.
Italians got
then
fucked.
Even Kennedy was the first Catholic president, and that was a big deal when he got elected.
Right.
So that's a good point. That it takes time. Nothing's gonna happen overnight.
I guess humans are just slow at changing, right? Yeah. We let them in eventually. Like we let people in our hearts, right? But it takes time, right?
Yeah, because even in Mexico, if you have dark skin, oh man, like they'll call you names, and it's totally acceptable in Mexico to give you nicknames based on the color of your skin over there.
What do they call you?
If you're you're a girl with black or dark skin, they'll call you negra. So so in other countries,
like it's a person you didn't know you meet, and you
like it's more overt than in the United States at times. So it's kind of
here too. Like
kind of funny.
When I first got here, like like let's say 1990, they would just say like to people like if they're a little bit overweight, they're like, "You're very fat." They would say it all the time, and kids would go, "Debu," like fat. Like, that was totally normal. As a way that was the way Japanese society keeps you in line, is social pressure, and now it's going away, and you see the society also going down too.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I support it. I'm telling you the facts.
But social pressure was kept certain things in check in society.
Yeah,
The hazing. Yeah.
kept sluts in check.
So the multi-generation hazing.
Yeah.
So like you can tell. I've observed this. You can tell when it ends. It ends when that group is now considered white. Like when my grandparents were growing up and they were Italian, they were never considered to be white, and that's when the hazing was still happening. But if you hear it today in the West, they've established, they've got money, they did whatever they were supposed to do to work within the system, and the hazing's over. And now they're considered that. They never, where my grandparents were growing up, the Irish used to spit on them and throw rocks at them on the way to school every single day because they were considered separate. They don't belong here. These wops or whatever. But once they stop that, that's kind of the hazing's kind of over.
You know,
you can kind of tell.
I'm sure this is politically incorrect, but there's that talk of privilege, right? And what is privilege? Privilege is basically somebody treated well, like basically when you first meet them. That's kind of what privilege is. Like, you don't know them yet, they haven't proven themselves to you, but you treat them well, right? And I was thinking about this the other day. I was in Japan, or China. So what am I saying? Fuck, I'm talking Hong Kong. I can't even fucking talk right now. I was in Thailand, right? Just before I came here. And this Japanese guy, I was talking to this guy who owned a hotel. And a Japanese guy had not paid his bill. And it was the last day he's checking out. And then the owner was like all stressed out, and he was trying to get this other guy to pay, like to find him, it wasn't Japanese. And the Japanese guy hadn't paid, and I said, well, what about him? And he goes, oh, don't worry about that. He goes, Japanese always pay. He goes, no stress, And then sure enough, the guy comes down, pays. And I realized that privilege isn't out of your ass. Privilege comes from people before you that look like you, that treated people well. And it's the same thing as if somebody comes in your store and steals shit. It has a huge influence on how you see that same type of person that comes in next. And
Group's reputation.
Yeah, it's a reputation. And like you can see it very clearly with Japanese all over the world. Nobody ever worries about them. They get privilege. Like they walk in, they don't have to I've seen this a million times. I mean, I speak Japanese. I'm always around like a Japanese group. And we're always like, they're never worried about us because they're like, oh, that's Japanese group. Of course they're going to pay. They've never had a Japanese guy who didn't pay. They never had a Japanese guy who left. But there's other races that or countries, not races, but countries that don't pay. And so they get all stressed out. And you think about it, it's just a convenient way for humans to save time. It's kind of like if there's one guy in a Rolls Royce and another guy homeless, you're not going to rob the guy who's homeless because the odds are he's not going to have any money. The guy in the Rolls Royce is going to have money. So we have this box. It's like, rob the guy in the Rolls Royce. We have these simple rules that keep life. You know what I mean? Like you don't frisk some old white lady for a machine gun or something, right? Because you just know that most of them fucking don't have machine guns, right? At the airport, and they're not wearing suicide vests. Yeah. So you're like, okay, it's just a practical thing we do, right? Just to save time, right?
Well, you interact with so many more people from all over the world than you did, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, whatever, right?
Right. We have to kind of judge, right?
Right. 1,000 years ago, you dealt with the people in your little village or tribe, and you knew them from birth.
And we all know this.
And you knew all, yeah.
And we all know this, and we all do this.
Yeah.
And yet we don't admit it. And at the same time, it's pointed out. I'm not saying people should do this. I am not saying what. Let's say, for example, a cop pulls over a black guy because they think he stole a car. These people are retarded. I think you got to separate retards from regular people. Because retards do all kinds of retarded shit.
But also, you shouldn't hold it against people for judging. So, like you said, like 9/11, right? When it happened, like first, no one knew what to think of Muslims. So when everybody's on edge when that thing happened, I don't think it's that people were necessarily being racist. They're just all they know is that there's at this point in time, there's certain people that went through the airport and blew up some planes, whether it was whether it's a conspiracy theory or not, or who allowed it, whatever. But they were known in this part of the world that this certain type of religious person are known to put suicide vests and walk into stores and just blow up. So it's normal for people to be put on edge.
That's for the 78 virgins. That's it. That's for women
Yeah,
too.
but it's normal for people to be a little bit on edge. That I don't think that necessarily makes one racist. Other than it's normal when the other tribe is acting a little out of control, right? And it's a shortcut for self-preservation.
Yeah, and also too, I think guys should know more about me. Like, I'll tell you this. So when 9/11 happened, okay, so I was very excited. I mean, in a bad time, I was like, what the fuck's happening? And I bought a ticket right away to fly to New York from Japan because I was in Tokyo. And so I saw 9/11 happen, and I arrived a week and a half after the attack. It was still smoking, right? The 9/11 still, the ground zero. So I got in there, and I started walking around because I wanted to see the effects on the people, if everybody was okay. I wanted to see what was going on. I wanted to know. I think I was the first tourist to go to New York, pretty much. Like, people were scared shitless. So anyway, I was sitting there, and then I remember it was an afternoon, a couple of days, and it was the first bombs dropped in Afghanistan. Like the very first bombs that were dropped in Afghanistan. I was out walking, as you guys are probably shocked to hear that. And I was walking by an Afghan restaurant. And I went inside and ordered a bunch of expensive food. And so I'm the only one in there. Nobody else was in there. And this is a true story. It's a crazy story. So I'm sitting in there, and the guy was kind of shocked. And I just, unlike me, I ordered, the expensive shit. And so then this Japanese TV crew came in. And they came in the door, and it was like weird. It was like deja vu. I'm like, this is so weird. So I'm the only one in there. So they came up to me, and they're like speaking English. And they're like, so where are you from? Are you from Europe? And I said, no, I'm American. And they said, American? Why are you in an Afghan restaurant? Do you know about the bombs and this and that? And I said, well, I talked in Japanese, which they didn't like either because they didn't expect it, right? So I said, look, here's the deal. I live in Tokyo. And every time, something happens with anything American, like taxi drivers won't pick me up, I get treated differently. And I said, I want these guys to know here, this guy is just a dude with a restaurant. And that some people are not so stupid to judge, like, that guy is just a restaurateur. You know what I mean? So I wanted to support him, just like I wanted people to support me when I'm here. And so I said to her, not everybody's, basically like, not everybody's that stupid in this world, And the lady looked at me, and she was totally shocked because it was not what she wanted to hear, because it reflected bad on Japan. And it wasn't good for Japan, and it was my own experience, and I said it in Japanese. And also, it was a very, very stinging lesson for everybody, because I although I would, if I was let's say an airport security, I would think like that. But when I'm looking at a restaurant, it's a totally different thing. You have to be smart enough to know the difference between a restaurateur and a dangerous person. And I'm like, this guy, no one's going to come in this fucking place for weeks probably, right? You know what I mean? And that is just fucked. But, if you go in to support the guy, maybe he'll, have the balls to keep going, right? Even if he's losing money. Because he said there's going to be smart people who don't see life that way, right? So it's like at the same time, you have to know both. You have to be fucking smart, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, I just feel like, this modern world, we try to pretend that we're not from the caveman, and it's these survival instincts that in the past kept the tribe alive, I feel. So I try to see it from both sides. I see it from the person who doesn't know anything and all they have is these mental shortcuts, to get along with their day by day. And then, you got guys who are on a different path, who want to see life, at a greater level than just taking these mental shortcuts and painting everybody from that race as the same. Because at the end we're all individuals, and in the United States, it is a melting pot. So it wouldn't be, the United States wouldn't be the way it is if there weren't that many good people to begin with, I guess. I feel like, I guess what I'm saying is with racism, it's easy to fall into the herd mentality at times when things get a little chaotic.
Yeah, I think it totally, like, one thing that shocked me is the first Ronin Summit, like, I don't know what percentage, but it was a large percentage of the group was black. And I had no idea who was going to be attracted to my channel. So I was pretty shocked because at the time they were trying to portray MGTOW as racist at the time. That's right. And then it was so funny, so I put the guys in a video, and then everybody shut the fuck up because it was so funny, because these are the guys who were attracted to the message. And I think one thing about Ronin Man, I don't put my face. And so people just hear the ideas, because I'm tired of being a face in Asia. Like, I wish I could just wear Japanese clothes sometimes, and not always look the way I look. Because I know it's disruptive when I walk in a place. Like, a lot of times I wish I could just be a Japanese dude for a while, because it'd be much easier just to be an Asian dude, right? To live here. And I'm disruptive, just being me, just walking into a party or a supermarket or whatever. Just some people, they either get excited or unhappy or whatever, just seeing me come in, right? And so it's tiring for me. So that's what I like about being judged on ideas is very, for me, it's very nice. And that's why I haven't put my face on. First I did it because MGTOW was hated and everything, but now it's kind of like, I kind of like the way there's no race in it. Running Man's like, there is no race. You know what I mean? It's like, it's all types of people come, right? And it's like, I'm not there either. And I'm not even like who I am, because I live most of my life in Asia. Like, I don't even think, like, most of my friends are Asian. Like, if I was going to say, how many friends do I have? How many are Asians? Going to be most Asian, right? And that's just natural because I live here. A lot of people help me out and shit. And that was what was always shocking to me too, is I got fucked over by foreigners a lot. Like, I did a business with a dude, he fucked me over. He was from San Diego, white dude from San Diego. And another dude fucked me over from Minnesota really bad, white dude. And ex-Air Force dude, and so I learned pretty quickly that the guy who helped me out the most was a Japanese dude when I that video about fighting the Yakuza at the English school that time. It was a Japanese dude, man. He fucking took him under his wings. And I was like, why are you doing this? And he's like, when I was young, I needed someone to tell me that you should fight. Don't let somebody fuck you over. You're setting the course for your entire life. And he really advised me the whole time on what to do, how Yakuza do things, what's dangerous, what to look out for. He told me everything I needed to know. Like, every day I could just go to him. And I don't even remember his name now. It was 35 years ago, or 30-something years ago. But he would always be there. He was always there. I could call him. He would tell me. He said, when you go to a ramen shop, the way they'll start a fight with you is they'll throw hot ramen on you. And so, I didn't go to ramen shops. Because I was terrified of fucking boiling water on me anyway. Not to mention, what do? You kind of got to fight, right? You know what I mean? Like, if someone throws hot ramen on you, right? That's. Plus, I don't like ramen that much anyway. Now I do, but then I didn't. So it was easy. But yeah, fuck. I think when you travel, I think that, like, when I met you and you had lived here, and everything you said in the group chat, like, I would say, of all the guys in the group, your advice was the best. Like if you go back and read Edgar's, comments in the group, everything was right on. And I was like, ooh, I like that. Ooh, I like that. Ooh, I like that. Because you had been here too. So, and also you're fucking smart, right? So you had figured shit out, and you were just saying things, not to say, oh, I know this thing, because I hate that. It's like, oh, I've been to Japan before, and You were just like, no, that's not the great thing. Try this, or we should go there, or maybe this will work, or. And I was like, it was just spot on ideas. And then there was a dude at the LA Summit, and he was saying, you guys seem just so disorganized. He goes, he wasn't from the Ronin group. He was hosting, but he knew somebody in the group, and he couldn't understand how we made decisions. And I said, look, man, here's how it is. At the Ronin Summits, the best idea wins. That's it. It doesn't matter your age, color, what the fuck. The best idea wins. So if it's where to eat, where to go, how to do this, where to do the meeting, when to end, like the best idea wins. And everybody kind of like looks at the guy who has the best idea, right? You've been to a bunch of summits, right? Right?
Oh, yeah.
It just happens. We just kind of go, okay. But that doesn't mean here's what the guy got confused by, is he had the best idea to go hiking the first day in Venice, right? And we did it. It was awesome. But his next idea sucked ass when he bought the Iranian food. And it was overpriced and cold and sucked ass, right? And so he burned a lot of goodwill. So we stopped listening to him because we realized it was just luck that he had one good idea. He wasn't like an effervescent source of wisdom, right? He was unending. He just had just randomly one good idea. But like other people, that they're more reliable. You were reliable, like good ideas, one good idea, and next good idea.
Right. Well, if the good idea is just luck, we'll know.
Right. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. You were on the tour, right?
Yeah.
This happened a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no ego. Like, whoever has the best idea, that's what we're going to do. Like that. And the thing is, the group has so much more fun that way and saves so much money. Because there's always somebody with a pretty fucking good idea. Like, we've been using you to find all the places to stay. Without you, we'd be fucking getting ripped off, right? 100%. This is the guy who brought us successfully to Enoshima, successfully to Atami during the festival, and then successfully to Shimoda. You were key because those were very tough places to get places. And you knew we still got to do that video, how to book a place online, because you're really good. And I think that's important because, like all these ideas are for people sitting there. Like, I think a lot of Ronin guys they're sitting at home thinking, like, fuck these people around me. Like, fuck being here. I want to get the fuck out of here. I'm not tied to these fucking people. Like, fuck them. I want to travel. You are your ideas, right? In the end, you're your thinking, your ideas.
Yeah, because the world has opened up for sure. Like maybe in the past, historically, your tribe was there to protect you. Your tribe was where they passed down knowledge, but those days are long gone. They've been gone for a couple hundred years. And now that the internet has opened up, you've been able to connect with other like-minded minds, whether it's video games, travel, books, knowledge, wisdom. There's all sorts of things that could connect you now to a different type of tribe. And I feel like we're kind of at the forefront a little bit, like we're pioneers. And who else do you know that's kind of doing this, meeting out, and across the world, and connecting with other like-minded individuals. It's tough work. So it's new ground that we kind of have to, we're making up the rules as we go.
And we're not part of some hierarchical structure like a military. Yeah. We're like not getting taken care of. Like every day, we're sitting here now going, everybody's a little bit uneasy today because we haven't made a decision about the next place, right? So we're kind of like, we did it. We're checking out tomorrow. We got to make some big decisions, right? North, south, Tokyo. Where's the next place, right?
Yeah.
And so we're doing it. Like we're living that life where it's not handed to us. It's not in a structure. It's not organized. And the benefit is that we can every single day we can do what we want. But you got to take the responsibility, right? You got to go with this isn't easy, right?
Go with the flow.
Yeah, risk.
Yeah. So what you were saying about like no other groups are doing this? It's like I know a couple other groups, but they were the complete opposite of this. They're like they do travel, but they've got money. They're totally exclusionary. Every year they try and make it more expensive to exclude even more people. I do know like they travel around the world, but I'm like I can't like it's more to make themselves feel more elite and better than everybody else, as opposed to we're like welcoming everybody, more and more people here, and not trying to make it exclusionary. We're trying to make it more inclusionary to have as many people. So, yeah, I've noticed the only people I know who do travel, they're like super elitist, and they just like want to rub your face in it. They're not actually traveling like, to experience the place or understand anything. They spend all the time in the Waldorf Astoria or something. They don't even get out to meet people.
They're vacationing. They're not traveling. They're vacationing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Like, how much was this place per night? We're staying in like a ramen bar, like an old ramen bar. Very cool place. I'll put this in the, I'll put the place. We got a video of this place.
Isn't it like $260 a night, I think?
But no, but how much per person?
Oh, per person, I think it was like $30, right?
It's like
Or $27.
$30, like $30, and we're in one of the best beach towns in the world, right? This place rocks, you know. $30 a night.
Yeah, what's the water?
So we're
that way.
Yeah, the water's right. We can jump in the water in the morning, go to the beach. There's tons of great beaches. So it's the opposite. I wanted to make this as cheap as possible, right? As cheap as flexible as possible, as cheap as possible. Not always easy to do everything, you know. But so far, we haven't had even one bad night. We haven't really gotten fucked over.
Yeah, those groups are inflexible and
Yeah.
elitist. They have the. It's funny. They have the exact set. Every minute of every day is planned just from the couple groups I know that do actually travel. These like cousins and stuff.
And also,
Yeah, they have a split itinerary for every day.
there's always that kind of temptation with a group, right? Like once in a while, like a rich guy will contact me, and he's like, "Yeah, you're doing good there, but basically, like, I'll take you. We'll make sure we'll go to these, you know, this place and that." And it's like I just have no interest in that because it's about the group. It's about hanging. It's about like I'm serious about this shit. Like I love what we're doing. You know what I mean? This is what I want to do. I don't want to be in some eating crab in some fucking lonely Tahitian island. You know what I mean? With a set menu. Like I want to be hammering it out tonight where we're gonna stay, right? You know.
But also, we're at the ground level, and by pioneers, I mean I'm not saying we're the only ones, but this is like for the first time in history, the internet has connected people in ways that would be unheard of 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and so people that are really questioning their reality, now you could get answers from someone else that you've never met. Maybe they put a post, a video on YouTube, you know. So that's what I mean by pioneers. This is
We totally are.
this is a whole new world.
Yeah.
Based on technology, right?
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
the newest. The newest. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We're pioneers. There's no question about it.
And the way we're booking rooms so cheap in Japan is just out of control. I was telling, who was I telling? Sean, that I don't think many Japanese are booking as cheap as we are. They're just not as, they're like, you. The way you're doing it is very fucking smart.
Yeah, they're trying to see more.
$30 a night in Shimoda? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, they're looking for more cookie cutters, things that make sense, and we're just kind of going down the
Yeah.
nitty gritty, looking for
Right. Dinner, what is it? Lunch, $3, you know?
shopping at the supermarkets.
Or like today. Today I spent $16 on breakfast because I went crazy, but I had some of the finest grapes in the world. I had a huge piece of sashimi, probably about almost a pound, right? A very delicious sashimi. What did I have? Fuck, I had a ton of good shit today. It was insane how good the food was. It was crazy. It was insane. Like everything was good. Like the best. Like the best grapes I could get, the most expensive. And they are very good this time of year.
And expensive.
They're very special. They're very special, but you can't get them cheap. These grapes, those big ones, the big red, or what are they, purple ones?
Dark purple.
Those fucking ones you can't get cheap. Even off season. You know.
A $10 little what is it?
Yeah,
Like
they're close to 10. Yeah.
a bunch of, not even that many grapes, right? Just like a little,
But the thing is,
a handful.
I'd rather pay for real quality, and then we ate it at like some kind of fucking folding table in the fucking supermarket, right? I'd rather pay for real food rather than pay for like flashy restaurant, right?
Yeah, and that's I've traveled with a friend before, and he wouldn't do the supermarket thing, especially in Asia, where going into the supermarket is kind of intimidating, you know, because you don't always know what you're buying, even though it may look similar, it may not be the same. Back home, or some of the things are more expensive, or some of the vegetables look a little weird and strange, and stuff. But I mean, that's how you get, you know, your best healthy food. You save money, right? Because you can't be eating ramen and sushi every night. I mean, you won't go broke, but you'll have to save much more money to have the same amount of adventure.
It's not even healthy either. You know, like there's no vegetables. You know, like we ate a pile of fruits and a pile of vegetables today. Like fuck, it was an amazing meal.
Yeah, so there are deals to be found in Japan and other countries that you can get Airbnbs, hotels with kitchens. That's when you get the best experience, I feel, because you could just shop and cook your own food.
I'm kind of amazed how cheap this place is now. You know, Japan used to be expensive, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it got cheaper.
Yeah.
Because when I first started traveling, like in 2006, and I'm doing the price ratio comparison, I'm like, it seems like things got cheaper here.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's such. Coming here was the best idea, basically. Now we got to make the next step, the next decision, right? What's the next thing, right? Because I think we should get all fired up and make a good decision. Not like what people tend to do is this, oh fuck, I don't know what, and then everybody just goes off and makes mistakes on their own, right? I think we fucking get a good core group, do something smart, and fucking full steam ahead, right? Fucking let's do it, right? Yeah. Into the fucking unknown, right? Yeah. All right. There it is.